So, in learning that all of this was possible, understand it just like that, with the snap of my fingers, it's had such an impact over how I looked at everything, because I can only think of all of it in terms of my life. I mean, in terms of potential, in terms of, okay, so if this has this impact with one retreat, if I keep doing, obviously, my consciousness work daily, and I keep doing retreats, like, there's just no telling where this would go. This would go to places I could have never imagined. And unsurprisingly, it did, because as I continued forward, did my consciousness work, and did these retreats, everything, and I mean everything about myself that I did not like, or I thought wasn't up to snuff for myself in terms of my own estimation of myself, all of these things, bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, began to get rubbed away, like almost like a sandpaper being used on a piece of wood, and getting smooth over time, and getting, dealing with all the rough edges. And it is an incremental process. And there was a point also where breath work came into the equation, meditative yoga, and that has been having serious impact as well, which is something I'll get into in another video. But yeah, that first retreat is really the thing that gave me a full understanding, or at least a far fuller appreciation of the potential of consciousness work. Because prior to that, even though consciousness work previously had a positive impact on me, it just did not hit home the way it did when I had completed that first retreat. I began to feel like every time I did a retreat, I was making myself a little less susceptible to all the world's bullshit. Well, actually, this is in general with consciousness work. When I do it on a daily, which I do it on a daily, but with these retreats, they hit particularly hard, because that's time where I get extended time alone. I get a hit on some of the most powerful techniques I have for an extended period, and just without all those distractions. Because when I'm doing a retreat, I don't accept phone calls, I don't watch nonsense videos. Everything is it's about growing my consciousness. And more and more, I did these retreats, and just became, as I suspected, less susceptible to all the BS. Like, when someone says something I don't like, it bothers me less. This is just a cumulative thing, And when you're dealing with yourself, when you're dealing with who you are as an individual, and connecting to your true self, and all the bullshit, which is your insecurities, your regrets, everything you aspire to be, everything, all the resistance within. In terms of consciousness work, when you are committed, this is what you do. It is truly a war of attrition, because you're going to have to do this over an extended stretch. All right? I mean, if I'm being honest with you, some of the most radical effects of this work really didn't start to show up for me. Didn't really start to show up for me until, I would say, early to mid. Well, I would say near the end of the first quarter of 2022. So, maybe around the end of March, beginning of April. In terms of, there was obviously some pretty dope stuff that happened beforehand, but as far as results that are really substantial, when you line them up against everything I was a few years ago, where I could just say this, the results are so significant, the changes are so significant, where if anyone knows me, I don't even have to do a lot of explaining for them to see it. When it became obvious, to the extent where I think it would be obvious with most people who knew me that I talked to, I really believe that began in early 2022. So that means I had already been at it, every single day, consciousness work and doing retreats for over 2 years at that point. But you'll never, ever, ever want to go back. And that's the thing. When you do your solo retreat, if you've ever done one or you're going to do one, I mean, really go at it. I mean, do it with the intent of putting in a lot of meditative work, a lot of time, rack your brain, stress your brain, put yourself through the ringer. Don't be shy or hesitant about doing that, especially with that first retreat, because it would actually become a lot easier second, third, fourth, and fifth. And then you get to a point where it's nothing for you to put in a bunch of consciousness work, on these retreats. But that first one is a mother effort. But you don't want to waste it, because if you waste that first retreat or you don't take it seriously, you'll get a false impression of what a solo retreat could do for you. Now, if you're going into a solo retreat, even with the most basic meditation techniques, put in some real time. It was the time I put in, and most of it was in small increments. There were some bigger increments. There were some bigger stretches. There was one stretch where I think I sat and meditated straight for 2-3 hours straight, which would be significantly easier today. It was not easy when I did it back then. And then you get tired. But there was also this point that was real dope in the first retreat where I'm sitting on a couch meditating, and I've been doing it for a couple of hours. And then, there's all this resistance, within my mind. I can feel it. What it's like, just feel the resistance in your mind. And then there's just this, suddenly this instant clearing, And I'm not saying this clearing was something that just stuck like that, but it was extended, where there was a feeling of clearing in my mind, as if someone cleared out a lot of, like someone just mowed a bunch of grass or cleared out a bunch of brush. And the result of that was just, for a while, I was just sitting there like, wow, my mind really I was feeling the level of clearness and weightlessness in my mind that was just unusual. This was a temporary thing. A piece of this is what stuck with me when I left, and is what I actually experienced after I had taken that nap. But definitely, I would say the importance of solo retreats, as far as your consciousness routine and your commitment to expanding your consciousness over time, is you need that time alone. You need that time away from people and distractions. It gets you away from distractions, whether it's your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your kids, your aunts, your mom, your dad, your boss, your friends, whatever other relatives, the news. You need those retreats to get away from those distractions. It's not just that. In terms of what you see around your household, what you see inside of your apartment, or what you see in your neighborhood, when you're around all that, so much of that carries memories. When you look at something, whether it's a particular door inside of your apartment or your house, or your bed, or it could be a book you have there. These things carry memories. They remind you of who you are, your past, who you're supposed to be. You could have a book sitting on your shelf that was given to you by your mom or your dad. And maybe you don't have the best relationship with your mom or your dad, and you just looking at it for a little bit brings back, sparks certain bad feelings within yourself. It seems like, really just off of a book? Yes, it's reminding you who you are. It's making you causing you to unconsciously re-identify or reinforce the idea of who you are. And that happens again when you may see a picture of you and your family inside of your house, or it could be just it could be the wall, for Christ's sake. If you're talking about maybe you had a fight in that same place with your mom or your dad, and you were standing by that wall, or they were standing by that wall. It could be a piece of clothing. It could be certain dishes. But when you're around And when you're in the familiar spaces, you're going to see a lot of stuff that reminds you of who you're supposed to be, that carries a lot of baggage, that sends your mind into stressful, uncomfortable tangents of thought. Period. That's why you want to get away to, a motel or a different space. It doesn't have to be a motel, it could be a cabin somewhere. You need to get to a space, have an extended amount of time to yourself when you're not, where you're not taking calls or being involved with the distraction, your typical distractions of daily life. So your mind can be free of that. So it doesn't have to waste time thinking of those things, reflecting on those things, reflecting on bad memories, emotions, all of that. So much of it is subconscious. So you want to get away by yourself. It is important. But yeah, ultimately the importance of these solo retreats is they give you the best opportunity to really have one-on-one time with yourself, learn about yourself, free from anything else in your life, which is just not, you're rarely going to ever get that if you don't go on a retreat. You'll never get it. And there's so much value in that if you spend the amount of time you have at a solo retreat properly. And yeah.